Good evening, everyone.
Josh?
Mike, I have a folder here for some stuff to sign from Lynn Luke. You want that now?
I'll take it down and we want that.
Mr. Bird, do you want me to just wait for the Act 143 till closed session then? Sure.
Has anybody heard from Katrina?
I am not.
I don't either.
No.
I thought she said, didn't she have an appointment?
Yeah, she would be late or.
Oh,
we
yeah.
didn't make it this one, remember her saying?
Oh, from in our last meeting?
Yes.
I thought she said she,
Try getting it from the car or something?
yeah, I thought that she said or something like that.
That's right, I remember that as well.
Agreed.
All right, well then we won't wait for her. Everybody else ready?
I'm ready to do it.
Everybody else ready at home there? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, it is 6 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting of the Highland School Board to order. The first item is roll call by the clerk.
Benish, here. Biba,
Here.
Dreschmeyer,
Here?
Drury,
Here.
Esser,
Here.
Mitchick,
Here.
Schmick.
All right, if you guys could join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is posting of the meeting given to the public pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1984.
So moved. Second, Judge.
We have a motion by Esser and a second by Drury. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is approval of the minutes from the November 11th regular meeting.
Sure, everyone knows Katrina is on now, so we can
Okay.
include her as participating in, as far as attendance. Did you get that, Andy?
I got it.
You got it? We're good.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Drury and a second by Esser to approve the minutes from November 11th meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is approval of current expenses and vouchers payable. And Bryce, do you have anything on there for us?
Well, it's kind of a short list, but on the third page, there's fourth one down for $3,600, First Western Equipment Finance. That's the last payment on the scrubber. I think there are 3 payments of that amount, so that we would own that now for scrubber. tax. Everything else is things we've been paying for most months, food, service, the audit billing, 2,200. And then the top one, clinic care, that's for our kids that get sent to New Frontier. Prairie du Chien.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Esser and a second by Benish to approve the current expenses and vouchers payable. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is public appearances before the board, not for action.
This is the time if there was public input.
I was gonna say, Josh, if we had any other people online, if they got any comments for anything later on the agenda, now would be the time for them to tell us as well.
So I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I'm not, is there anyone that's obviously not here that's watching virtually, want anything for public appearances now? You will not have a chance to speak later. Now is your opportunity.
All right.
Oh, 1 second, I got, if you give me 1 second here, Mike, please.
Yep.
One just entered the meeting room. I think she was here earlier, must have kicked out. I just let her back in, but now is your opportunity if you have something you'd like to say as far as public appearances, not for voting recognition.
All right, we'll go on to the announcements and reports. If we get somebody right away during your report, Josh, we'll let them speak, but just go ahead.
All right, as far as my announcements, second quarter, obviously we're in about, I think we're about a month, a little less than that, end of December here. First week in January, the end of the semester. So we've been virtually the last couple weeks now. We're gonna talk about that later, so I won't get into that right now. But as far as some things going around in the district, we did our book sale that the elementary does. Ms. Parker leads that up and did that online this year. Actually, it worked really good, I think. So we might actually look at doing that. It's a lot easier. Books get sent right to their house, things like that. So, with this pandemic, there is some things that we learned and some things that come out of it that turn out to be okay. So luckily we were able to do that. Get some more books to our kiddos. Sports. Football season ended up here this last week, and they came in as a 3 seed and won the whole, as far as they could go. They won the regional, ended up the year undefeated, and I couldn't be more proud of the boys, the kids. It was an outstanding, coaches did a great job, players did a great job. For anyone that didn't get a chance to see them too much, we never had a player that stood out. It was the definition of what a team is, and I was extremely, and that last game was just awesome to watch the way they end up winning the game, and just a back and forth, 2 even teams. They had a couple injuries, we had some injuries, and just, it ended. Gabe Benish grabbed the football. His, in 4 years of football, never scored a touchdown. Very last play of his high school career, scores a touchdown on a fumble. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better ending to a great season, to a great story. Obviously they didn't get to play and go to a state championship. However, so you can't say they're state champs, but you can't say they wouldn't have been. You know what I mean? So unfortunately though, WA does not give out a plaque or anything for that. I don't know why, for a regional championship at least. So we're gonna put something together and get in the trophy case to recognize. I don't know what it's going to say yet. I think maybe 2020 undefeated season, and put that on the wall for these kids. And great year for Sports has started for our winter. Boys just started actually Monday. Girls, we've been practicing, this is our third week now, and we have yet to unfortunately play a game. Our first 2 games have already been canceled. Another game we already know is going to be canceled. So 2 of them we got rescheduled right now. 1 of them we did not. Picked up some games though. We picked up Belleville and Seneca today. Picked up Hillsborough for tomorrow night up there. So we're trying our best. The girls have been extremely pleased with the girls and how hard they're working, especially, not being able to play a game yet. They're staying with it. We're short on numbers with the girls. We're down to 13 players. One's still coming off an injury, and hopefully we'll get her back soon. We have another one that might have to take some time because of something she might have to have done, as far as an injury she had previously. But we're going to try our best to keep a JV season as long as we can, and then we'll go from there. The boys, they're a little better on numbers than we are. They had some kids come up that didn't play previously, so that was nice to see. I think they have 3 of them that didn't play last year that are playing this year, so that was nice. I think they're around 15, maybe 16 now. So for us, that's really good. Grapplers just got their skin folds here this week. We are taking 12 over there right now. There's 1 that didn't come out we wish would have, but over that, we got a ton of kids going over there. I think we're about 50-50. We might have a couple more kids than our co-op, but overall, they're at her too. Unfortunately, we talked before about the limited number of matches, and we'll talk about a match coming up here in the meeting that you guys got to approve if we're going to do that. But they're rolling as well, and those boys are hopefully getting in shape. But talk to Brad; they're working hard. So as you remember, we have Brad driving the bus over for us. And he's our assistant coach from our district, so that's working out that's slick. So that was a great move, and we were very lucky to have Brad get his bus driver's license to save us some coin in that whole deal. So one thing I need to discuss with you as far as spectators at sports, Shellsburg, as you know, is in the 6 Rivers West for basketball. There was an issue with them during volleyball where they went against the conference recommendation. It was approved, I think I shared with you last meeting, that we have 2 spectators per athlete. The only thing that changed was they're allowing coaches to have 2 tickets as well. So coaches' parents or wife or maybe can go as well. Shellsburg told us at the district administrator meeting that they were going to do the same thing they did in volleyball. So they're going to allow more fans in Shellsburg. They're going to have a concession stand. And I'm not sure, are they taking fees? Are they charging admission?
I think so.
And they might be charging admission. So obviously, that's a problem. The school board, obviously has every right to do and set policy, and if that's a policy they have in place, they can do that. However, it really sets a bad precedent, I think, when a conference agrees to do things, so it's even for out. Everyone would love to have as many fans there as we can, right? We wanted to get 4, that got voted down.
We wanted to charge admission.
We wanted to charge admission, that got voted down, but we're not going to do that because we respect the decision of the conference. So it was brought up about, and they did mention if a team has an issue with that when they come to our house, let us know. So if that's something we want to discuss, we can do that. We can choose not to play that game, choose not to go there. That's a decision every team that travels to Shellsburg's got to make.
So these are decisions were made based on safety, first level. So people are concerned about getting too many bodies in this area. And so I don't know, it sounds like it's mainly their board's position, because their superintendent was at this meeting, a virtual meeting, but so it creates that, and like Josh and I were talking today, it's like even it would affect our team. We play there. We're used to having 20 fans from the opposite team. You've got 50 or 60 or whatever could be. I don't know if that many people come, but so the chance of exposure is greater. But the other thing is kind of unfair home court advantage. They can establish some pretty loud sidelines, and you know, the one administrator talked to me about it in volleyball, how if, you know, 30 or 35 students shoulder to shoulder, then they had other parents, and it was, you know, the other team had barely anybody, so that's another thing. So one thing that was brought up later, a couple of superintendents were talking and kind of checking with other people about, well, if River Ridge didn't go, and Cassville didn't go down there, and Highland didn't go, Potosi didn't go, I mean, they would lose. You could almost force them maybe to change their mind on this, because they can't really lose half a season, I know, 10 games or 9 teams or whatever it would be, so. Kind of looking for how the board feels of, you know, should we, if they stick with that decision to have, you know, to have more than 2 tickets per player, should we just say we're not gonna come down, we just,
Is it considered a forfeit for the teams that don't go? Or shall we
Well,
get-
that's my question. So when we talked about this at the last board meeting, we said that if they chose to do that against the conference ruling, that they should be able to forfeit that game.
I don't know, but it'd either be a forfeit or a no game.
So my question is, what's the Six Rivers Conference gonna do to Shelburne for not following the conference rules?
Honestly, we don't, at this point, this is unprecedented, you know, so, you know, as far as bylaws, you could get, you know, if there's a bylaw that was broken intentionally, you know, depending on what it was, you know, you could get obviously ixnay from the league, I would guess, you know, but in my years, in the 11 years I've been, I've never came across something like that, you know?
I'm not
It's,
saying that should happen. I'm
Yeah.
just saying is that if the conference ruling is, that's what it's supposed to be, then there's, obviously, they're going against what conference bylaws is already ruled against, or for. So they're going against the rule.
They are, but it's not in the bylaw, at least right now. Like I said, this is new, you know, and for something to be in the bylaw, that's quite a process that takes, you know, so it wouldn't happen this year for sure. And, you know, as far as a forfeit, at this point, they're deeming it as just a no game. And, you know, I guess we could call a forfeit, we win. They're not gonna call it that. I don't know what, you know, what the official WA word would be, I guess.
Well, I guess what's the WIA stance on that?
As far as I know, they don't have one.
Yeah, we haven't asked them directly, but they've stayed off of everything else, but the thing that, this is kind of new to everybody, new to me, but I'm frustrated earlier on when we spent quite a bit of time, you know, talking about, are we gonna play fall football or spring football or volleyball? Then conference voted, you know, we're gonna play in the fall, and volleyball is in the spring, or whatever it was. The conference voted and it was one way or the other, but then individual schools did their own thing. Came back to their boards and they said, oh, we're gonna push it to the spring. So that seemed like wasted time, but then it seemed like, well, yeah, well, maybe that's something different, but this, you know, we're voting on ticket taking, we're voting on concessions. That seems to me a little trivial, like if you don't think concessions are safe, don't send your kid to the concession, but maybe they don't want to fight that battle, I don't know. And we could make arguments either way for tickets, but, you know, I voted against some of that stuff and I got overturned or lost on, you know, I thought we should charge if we could, because in some cases it's quicker than trying to find your name on a list, according to Kim, so. But it would make sense.
Are other schools handling it, Bryce?
Well, they haven't, this is the only conference I know where they have like a rogue school that's just doing their own thing on it. And I know, I turned on the SWAL meeting today just for a little bit to listen in, because the basketball guys were there, but the one guy was saying from basketball, he wants whatever it is at uniform, like for tickets, he doesn't want lists for some schools and bring tickets for other schools. Whatever we do, he thinks it should be uniform so it's easy to manage. So that's what, and I shut that off. That's what they're trying to get, and that's what I think should happen. Otherwise, all these meetings and bylaws and rules are just, they don't mean anything, and we're wasting time talking about it.
What would happen if all the schools that are in our conference said, we're not playing you if you don't follow the rules?
I would hope they would change their tune because they lose about 9 games.
So they lose,
Six.
they lose 6 games, I think.
It was kind of like the mask thing, right? You know, it was voted on at the conference level that every game that the team in the Six Rivers play, whether it's a conference game or a non-conference game, both teams wear masks. So I brought up and say, so if I go to Hillsborough and Hillsborough's conference doesn't have that, you know, we're gonna ask them to wear a mask, correct? I said, yeah. If they refuse to wear a mask, then we're asking that you not play that game. Okay, as long as everybody's on the same page. All right, well, how is this different than that? Right?
Well, it really seems that none of us should be playing Schultzburg if they are refusing to do it.
Right.
And I think you guys are right about the concessions. That may not be as big a deal, except for the fact that it allows people to eat in the stands, which means they don't have masks on. So the last time we played down there in volleyball, there was a whole student section sitting shoulder to shoulder, eating popcorn, sharing popcorn, and weren't wearing masks because they were eating. You know, and I understand that our mitigation strategies are just to reduce risk. But, you know, there wasn't even an attempt to reduce risk there. And it does put our students even at some risk to be in a gym that is over, you know, our minimal capacity that we're kind of asking for.
I agree, it does. And then also, I mean, not that this is the end all be all, this is down the list from safety, obviously, but, you know, it was brought up, there was a big volleyball game. Schultzburg was a good team, right? We were the only team that beat them in the league last year, right? That conference regional game between another school and our conference was played there. And they felt they had a big disadvantage because they had the fans there, they got a lot, and the other team didn't. And it was a big game. So I know that's second to safety, don't get me wrong, but should that not be weighted?
And it also seemed like even our fans didn't have access to half the gym. There were people that were sitting from Schultzburg. It wasn't divided
It
equally
was not equal.
for space like we've tried to do here for teams. And of course, if you're gonna allow more fans from one to the other, they're gonna wanna take up more than half the gym, but that kind of puts our fans in a little bit of a pinch as well.
Yeah. You know, my big thing is the last thing we want to do as a conference is pit one school against another. You know, the last thing I want to do is go down there and say, hey, we're not playing you, but we're not the one that's doing that. You know, they're pitting themselves against the rest of the conference, and that's the frustrating thing to me. And I shouldn't, you know, it's a school board decision. However, you know, and Mr. Learman and Ms. Bendorf are new. You know, I think they're in their second year in each of their positions. So, you know, whether that's, you know, an issue for that or what, but I don't know. I mean, I feel.
When do we play? How far down the schedule?
They play here on Friday for us, and then the boys, I don't know when they go there. Off the top of my head.
You don't go
Have
there.
know where?
we
End of
asked,
February.
So
have
it's
we
a
asked
while.
any other conference schools what their position is on possibly saying, we're not gonna come to you?
That was started by,
That's
Mr.
it.
Bird talked with what River is so
Talk with
far,
River Ridge, he's checked with a few other ones, and he's getting
feedback.
that feedback that at least a few of the ones he contacted would do that. They would say, we need to follow the conference rules, we're not going to play if you allow all those fans. And I don't know if we should just focus on the fans, we should, probably the right thing to do is focus on everything, but
Well, I guess my question would be is if the other schools in the conference can agree that they will not go to Schultzburg for both boys and girls basketball, if they don't follow the conference rules, then I'd say that's the way to try to get them to change their mind about what they're trying to do. If that can be done, great. If not, then I guess leave it up to each individual school and they can say whether they want to go there or not. But I guess my opinion of it is you can't have one school go against what the conference ruling is and just say, tough. That's how it's going to be.
You know, one thing we could do, you know, because they said if this is a problem, talk to us, and okay, we'll talk to you, say, hey, we come down there, we appreciate if you follow the conference rules. And do that as our school and see what they say back. If they say, no, we're not going, then we can Okay, well, now I have to go here. You know, we could look at it that way, try to give them every opportunity.
Like, we can give them that opportunity, but I think it'd be better, to me, I think they'd probably open their eyes a little bit more if the other 5 or 6 schools in the conference would say, you know what? We're not gonna come unless you follow the rules.
So we need to probably have a conference meeting to do it right, instead of going around and put it as an agenda, item, have a meeting right away and say, you know.
Cause how many schools have already played at Shelburne that are conference? Do anybody know?
0 so far.
0? Okay.
How they played. So Shelburne's only played 1 home game so far.
I agree with everyone else's sentiment that you can't have one conference go rogue, or one school go rogue, and then expect everyone that's outside of there to come there and they get to do whatever they want when everybody else is trying to follow what is the guideline by the conference. That's just unfair.
Are they limiting people at all, or just letting however many?
They are, they have parameters on it, I think they go by like percentage of the gym capacity. But, you know, like, as Mike said, it's not a, you know, where they can social distance everyone, you know, the fans are, you know, like a typical, I mean,
Typical game.
Student section they have.
student
I think
section.
when they had volleyball, they allowed as many students as wanted to come, and each kid got 2, and then the seniors got 4 or something.
Something like that, I can't remember. I know it wasn't full, but it was obviously a lot more than any other school would have.
I guess I'd try that approach, Bryce, and see how it goes, and if it can work, great. If not, then I guess we have a decision that we can talk to them and say, you know what, we'd like to have you follow the conference rules when we come play. And if they choose to say no to that, then we'll say, then we have a decision to make whether we want to go or we want to say, no, we're not going to play it.
Wonder, on that note, I wonder, Mr. Bird, do you think this is something that we should ask a conference commissioner to at least address with them and say, hey, I've had, you know, 5 schools, whatever,
Is that
talk to
Al?
me, it's Wade Winkers.
Wade?
The other thing to maybe address would be what's the ramification of not playing for both conference title and for just that game? If it's
Seeding at the end of
considered
the year, yeah.
a no game or a
It's huge.
forfeit. It looks like the boys play there on the 19th and the girls play there on the 21st, it's both in January. So it's not something coming up here in the next couple weeks, but
You know, potentially that could really hurt Shelburne if the conference teams got together and said, we're not going to come to you, because obviously Shelburne's going to have a good girls team this year. I don't know what they have for boys, but that can hurt them come seed time for playoffs.
Well, I can start with Wade. I talked to a superintendent today, and, you know, he didn't get specifics of what the consequences were, but they're worked up from River Ridge. Wade Winkers is a conference commissioner, but the president of the conference is it Al from Monticello or Tracy from Judah? Tracy.
All of ours, the east and west, as far as the principals, is Tracy Davis.
Okay, and then Al is the superintendent from Monticello. I'll probably start with Al. Talk about this, and I could even call Mark at Charlesburg also.
Yeah, definitely, I mean, I don't wanna, we definitely wanna hide it, say, this is how we feel, I mean, be upfront about it, right?
If you got all the other schools following the position of what the conference wants, that's not the route to be going.
well, with everything going on, we're trying to decide whether we can even get kids in school here, and we've been virtual for several weeks because of this, and we're fortunate to be able to be playing sports, you know, and having the 2 tickets at least allow some parents to come watch their kids, and just seeming to take those minimal things that we can do to mitigate risk are really important, and it left a bad feeling in my experience when we went down there earlier this year. It just didn't seem like it was trying to follow the protocols that we're trying to set out for socially distancing and wearing masks and trying to keep apart. So I definitely haven't seen it. Makes it more of an issue than just talking about it in general.
I'll give us a couple calls in the morning on this right away. And get that started and.
All right. That's it for me. Unless you have any more questions.
Todd, do you have something for us? Okay. All right, on to the district administrator report then, Bryce.
So just to recap a little bit on that correspondence about the school bus contract. So the 20 days for virtual, we're paying Warco at 80% of the cost for contract. And then when I talked to him, you know, it talks about negotiating if we have more virtual days, and he's okay with doing that late in the year. Like, it could be a chance the virtual days could be behind us, and then we know how many we're talking about, and possibly he would also know if he had many snow days. He talked about doing snow days. To me, he thought he could do those normal, but that could change if he had 10 snow days like that one year. So he sounds like he's gonna be good to work with. So if we could get later in the spring, if lucky if some of this is behind us and we're not doing virtual days, that may not happen. But anyway, we'll decide if we do anything up and beyond that. The contract is, we have a contract with Warco until 2023. I had another vendor contact me, Badger Bus, wanted to bid on our contract. I don't know if that's too far out, and how do you usually do it? You actually put out for bids, and there's not that many companies that, only certain ones can service this area, so I don't know if it does good to bid out 3 years ahead of time or not.
I guess I'm at the head of the transportation committee, and I think right now for 3 years out, I don't know if it really helps us to do that until we get closer to contract, whether we want to have a bid out or if we want to continue to work with Warco.
Yeah, we can decide that. I think it's too many variables to bid, this year and 2 more years,
Yeah.
you'd be starting the fall of 2023, I guess. So, okay, I can let the guy know that for sure.
Where's Badger Bus out of?
Don't even know, get it toward Madison.
Right.
Because there's Southwest and there's, one we have, and there's some state ones like First Student and Lamers. There's only a handful that would be 4 or 5, and then some maybe wouldn't be interested, and some might not be interested in smaller contracts, but some might. We have some information, I put it, where you could click on it, this public instruction document. So this is proposed legislation that's out there that I just found out about in the last 2 days. So this is things that may come through shortly in January, or may not come through at all, but I just want some things that I think would have affected us or could affect us. First of all, changes to open enrollment. If you look under, does everybody see the document I'm talking about, or do you have it in front of you? So we've places I've been, we kind of went and operated this way anyway, but this is under open enrollment, and for an alternative application, if they check the best interest of the pupil, if the parent does, then the resident district can't reject it. I mean, and I know some schools have tried to fight that early on, and they've always lost, to my knowledge. So now it sounds like it's getting closer and closer. This is kind of putting it where you can send your kid to whatever district you want. If you want to change mid-year, you can change. Transportation isn't provided, but I know athletics, you're not free to roam like that. I mean, there's restrictions with that, but pretty much, and I think what the thinking is with the legislature is they want competition. They want schools. I think a lot of people behind these laws think that schools, if you have to fight to keep your kids, you've got to have a better product, have better services. So I think that's the thinking behind it. So that's a step in that direction. And again, the thing that I always worry about is we get about a third, if a student open enrolls out, we still get about a third of the money. But there's always pressure to have all the money follow the student to that school. If that happened all at once, with how many of our kids are open enrolled out, say if it was 30 kids, it'd be about 100,000, 100,000s. So I hope that if it ever happens, it doesn't happen in 1 year. Second thing is, we've had this a few years ago, a grant for freshmen to get a device. And if we paid $125 toward a device, they would get another $125 from the state. However, if we spent money, CARES money, then we wouldn't get it. If we spent CARES money on technology devices, we wouldn't get that. And then they want to track how many people are in person, how many are virtual. And as you look down through here, it gets to be where later on, they want to, I'm going to go to the end here, but they want to withhold money under 6 and 7. They want to withhold money or have us pay back some money if we're doing too much virtual. So that seems a little extreme. Under number 6, they're saying basically the school board would have to vote, and a 2/3 vote if we were going to switch from in-person to all virtual. Beginning on January 11th, that this would go through. And I don't know if they can get all this stuff done by January 11th. Under number 7, they're saying that if we provide virtual instruction instead of, in lieu of personal, and that's not, I don't have enough information on that, but I think if when we close and go to virtual, then you have to pay $371 per pupil back to the parent. And I don't know if that is given the dual choice like we have always going on, because we have one or the other. You can take virtual. So this is pretty new and I don't have a lot of information on it, but they're definitely, it seems like putting things in place to, try to force the hand of schools and make us be in person instead of virtual. And then number 5 is an interesting one. And again, I always feel like they don't trust us. This is basically what we've put in place, that we want teachers to instruct from school buildings, not from home. And then we have some instances where we would allow it based on circumstances. And one of them are medical things. We had a situation with daycare things and we solved it a different way, but they're being very specific on this. And they're saying you can't instruct from home. You have to do it from school unless there was a doctor's note. But then they're also saying that they'll withhold, if we're not following this, not following the rules, they're going to withhold a large amount of aid depending on these dates. We have to fill out reports. And they have a way, if a person has a doctor's note to teach from home, but if the vaccine is approved, once it's available, after 2 weeks, then they're saying that a doctor's note doesn't cut it. You have a chance to get vaccinated and you can come in and work. So I don't know where this is going to all go, but it's a lot. There's a lot of documentation just in these things here. The open enrollment, like I say, I've kind of operated that way anyway. Somebody's open enrollment, we just didn't fight it because it just seemed like you were going to get the results. The computing device, if we get, maybe we could, I think we've already got paid out of the grant, so I don't know if we'd be eligible for that this year. And, well, the government the federal money for extended leaves expires, so I don't know if there is any money left for that, so maybe the daycare thing, these people wouldn't get paid. But it's just, they're stepping in, and it's pretty clear that they want to force schools to have kids face to face. That's how I read it. So that is, that's the main thing. Other things, just generally with the budget, you know, so we have this budget surplus in the state, and a certain amount had to go to the rainy day fund. And the lawmakers are saying, the Republicans, Finance Committee is saying they're leery of new spending. But they're probably, you know, on track in a way because there may be a lagging economy after this pandemic is over. I mean, a lot of the surplus this year is just carried over from we were really strong going into this year. So they may, I mean, they're going to be cautious until things really pick up. And I don't know if there's going to be a lot of new money in the formula. I usually don't find that out until summer. So I'll probably run reports with like flat, like no increase, and just kind of budget that way, at least at first, until I hear anything more. Any questions on anything?
Those proposals, Bryce, is that legislation proposed, or is that some kind of internal admin rule proposal?
No, that's legislation from the Republican, or from the, I shouldn't say Republicans, Republican control, but it's the Finance Committee.
Okay. All right, then we're on to new business. First item is approving middle school wrestling co-op with Iowa Grant.
So as you know, we co-op with the high school kids with Iowa Grant, and we'd like to recommend that we do the same with our middle school. We have 8 wrestlers signed up, 6 to 8 to IFFIs, so possibly 8 as far as transportation. They could ride over with a bus that's already going there. Our coaches, we'd have an Iowa Grant coach and a Highland coach. Actually, Brad Tucker is the Iowa Grant coach, and Isaac Campbell would be the Highland coach. You know, they have about the same. I think Mr. Tucker said they had about 6 last year, so he's guessing probably around 6 to 8 as well. We switched, as you remember, our boys youth basketball or middle school basketball started early. We switched those around so that our seasons would line up better, so we could get more matches. The matches would be about the same look as last year, maybe a little different, but they'd be where other schools, you know, as you know, they meet in one place, and it's not a tournament, but the same format as we did with middle school last year. So it's recommended by Coach Allen, recommended by our assistant varsity coach, Brad Tucker. So it's, I think, good for the kids. I know a concern, obviously, with the COVID as far as kids traveling back and forth. But I just get concerned that we only have 6 kids practicing here at different weights, that it's really giving them a lot better look all year as far as the practice, when they can get more kids to scrimmage against and practice against. So our recommendation was to approve a co-op with our middle school wrestling. Questions?
Josh, so over the summer, I guess when we approved contracts, we originally had, who was approved in Highland for
Mr. Campbell.
just the one?
I think Mr. Campbell and Coach Abe last year, was it not, Barbie? Yeah. So Coach Abe would not be this year.
As far as times go, they go over and they come back all at the same time.
Correct.
And does the season, as far as middle school and high school season, all line up the same where they start and end roughly at the same time, or?
No, the middle school probably on sooner. Middle school season is about 6 weeks.
Anybody got any thoughts or emotion for me?
Do the kids know that this is a possibility, or the parents that are in middle school right now?
I don't know how much, to be honest with you, Andy, Lynn has shared with them, the parents on this. Ms. Mitchick, I have not myself.
Is it just, I mean, it's not a contract like the, like a 2-year contract like we do for the high school? Is it a 1 year to year thing? Or is it the
Yes.
same?
It's a year to, is that what you're asking? Is it an annual thing? Yeah, it's a year-to-year thing.
Okay.
As far as, as far as us paying the coaches, we would pay the Highland coach and Iowa Grant would pay the Iowa Grant coach.
And when would this start, Josh, after
It'd
Christmas?
be, right after Christmas.
I think it would be good to get some parent feedback on it too. That's, the main concern is mixing kids from one school with the other, and I know we're doing it with high school, but it's just a little added risk there. I don't think we have any wrestling parents here, do we?
For middle school?
Not for middle school, I don't think.
All right, so could we possibly table that then, Mike?
I'm trying to think, I don't know that we'll have another meeting before you start.
Does it start immediately when you come back into school from winter break?
Yeah, I want to say it starts like that first Monday in January that we come back to school. That's at the 4th.
Greg, do you have any feedback for us? Just, I know you're involved with the wrestling a little bit more than the rest of us.
I would agree. I think that you should get some feedback from those middle school parents. Just based on obviously the current pandemic, based on just their overall feelings in making that shift, I guess, if that's obviously I don't have I have one of my boys that'll be coming up here maybe next year, a couple years, but I mean, I guess I would want to, my concerns would be just that. I mean, just under the current situation and just, yeah, I think Andy asked, I was gonna ask that question, are we doing this in annual? Or you said it's year to year, so yeah. I mean, I think just overall, I mean, we, I would really like just to see more, that season is 6 weeks, but I really would like to see more involvement. I mean, from the high school program over there, however, our coaches, I mean, just to work with these kids more. I mean, I just like to I don't know. I feel like, 6 weeks wrestling, then they're done. I don't know. I just feel like I'd like to see, to see some more, I don't know what the right word is. I mean, I just think I'd like to, I guess I'm just going to stop and say, I think at this point, the parents that are involved with the kids, have middle school kids right now, I think they have to provide the feedback. I'd like to hear their feedback, since they're the ones that are going to be having their wrestlers co-oping now. Their feedback, if they're fine with it and they come back with that feedback to the board, I think that, that gives us some discussion a little bit more than we have. So I'll just stop short there.
So a couple things, Josh. One is to make it clear that as far as doing the co-op with Iowa Grant and the middle schoolers, I think we're probably all in agreement that that's a great thing if we can do it safely. I mean, the whole question here is about the COVID and the intermingling of students between schools. It has nothing to do with the programs or the opportunities or anything like that. I think are great as far as the co-op goes. So I'm wondering if there would be a possibility that we could approve this conditionally with approval from the parents. That way we don't have to come back from the board. And I don't know quite what approval from the parents means. If that means
if we have
all
like
6 are
majority of
okay.
parents,
What's that?
yeah, how many do you need? If we had like majority,
Right.
4 out of
That's
6,
what I'm
or,
trying to figure
I don't
out.
know, because I'm sure, especially with this pandemic, as everyone knows, there's people all over the board with it, right? So, yeah, if it's a majority of parents are okay with it, do we go pending that? Or can we approve it that way? Or like, we need at least 4 to say, and you guys tell me.
Right, because I think that's the concern is, let's say, 6 out of the 8 are okay with it, but the other 2 don't even go out then because of it, then we're not providing opportunities to those 2 kids. And so I think that's.
Well, we still are, but it's not what they're comfortable with.
Correct.
Well, and the other thing is, I think, I don't know, I guess I just feel like we need to ask these parents because there are wrestlers that are, just as there are other athletes doing club type sports, and there's a lot of I've seen that around the state in all sports, whether it's girls basketball, boys wrestling. There are a number of athletes. I know there's a number of athletes in high school wrestling that are not participating in a shortened 7-week season wearing masks to wrestle when they can openly. There's tournaments in the Dells, there's tournaments everywhere that they're just honing their skills, taking it an opportunity to, especially the ones that have another year. So that may hold true for some of our kids too. I'd really like to get the feedback from the parents. They might be saying, hey, well, we're taking this year from not going to middle school wrestling for these reasons because of the pandemic. And so I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but I just think there's too many moving parts, and I just feel like we need to ask them.
I think too, parents just appreciate being a part of that decision. It seems like a good transition, but parents just, I think it goes more smoothly when they get to be heard and are part of this decision.
I agree.
Well, why don't we do a survey, find out what parents are okay with, and if the majority are okay with it, if we get an approval that way, then we don't have to come back. Or what I can do is get it to you, and then you'd have to have
we have to
we start the season after the next meeting, for us anyway.
On the survey, you have to put out some kind of information a little bit.
Yeah, just what it would look like.
Yeah.
Would it be easier to just talk to these 5 parents than do a survey? I mean, it's so.
It might be, I'll talk to Bradley and see how he wants to, I'll have him actually do it, but I'll see what, or at least get what we need and get in contact with him. Or Mr. Campbell, maybe both of them. Yeah, maybe we just bring him in one night, but I don't know how freely people or parents would speak if that's, if they're against the majority. Maybe we call them individually maybe and see where they're at, since it's only, we're looking at 6 or 8.
Middle school wrestling last year. You weren't co-op, you weren't combined last year?
Nope, this is
No,
new.
this will be the first demo.
Do a survey, majority rules.
What's the mascot? Seriously, was there a mascot? What I recall.
HIG.
Lynn said on the chat, her and Coach Campbell can call and talk to the parents. That sounds perfect. Thank you, Lynn.
By the end of the meeting.
I guess what are people's comfort level? I appreciate your comment, Andy, that when we make decisions like this and don't involve the parents ahead of time, that's when we usually get the most feedback afterwards. So I think it's good to do that. But if people are comfortable doing some kind of conditional approval, I guess I would entertain that. I don't know that we want to schedule a special meeting on Christmas Eve to come back and vote on just this.
I'll make a motion to approve pending majority of the families are in agreement.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the middle school wrestling co-op with Iowa Grant pending approval from majority of the parents after they're talked to. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed?
Josh, we can do that. Is there anything specific that we need to be closed session for?
Correct, 143. Does that have to be closed, Barb?
No, only if you're talking about the safety plan details, but it need to be closed.
No, we can do it open.
Next item then is reviewing the Highlands School Safety Plan and Training Drill Report for Act 143.
Yeah, obviously with our grant, the last several years, we've had our safety grant, obviously, and it's just finishing up now. I have not done a safety drill as far as for a threat assessment safety drill this year yet. Obviously with the pandemic, it's, been crazy. So every year, like last year, for example, we did a mock lockdown. We practiced, that might've been 2 years ago. I can't remember now, but we did an actual, if you guys remember, we brought the ambulance in, we brought everybody in. It was great. The year after that, I did just a mock where practice with staff and students where they were passing between classes that had never been practiced before. This year I have not done anything, but we're not, our safety plan is good, it's solid, so there won't be any changes to it. Just if you recall, the things that we did and we have in place now is the stuff on the windows as far as for, someone breaking in with gunshots. We have the coating on the windows. You look above the door there, we have the doors all numbered on top and in bottom as far as where you go for your exits. We went through all our codes and things that we use for as far as lockdown, a hold, fire drill, tornado drill, how we do that now. So for example, if it's a fire drill, which we did, every month, we make an announcement, this is a fire drill, and then we sound the alarm. So staff understand that if the alarm goes off for a fire drill, that they don't leave their classroom unless they see smoke. So in case obviously someone that we don't want in the building did pull it, things like that. So all those things are in place, and the plan has not changed from this year to last. The things that we finished up with is we had to do threat assessment training. And it was just been a bear to get that in because they weren't doing any in-person trainings anymore. So I finished up the last training that I needed to do was the basic threat assessment training virtually. Finished that up last week. Ms. Henderson is still finishing up the grant for us. So once we get that done, we are good to go. She can finish up the last of the grant, send that in, and we should be good to go. So, but there's a lot of homework and there's like 40 of us that are in it. So unfortunately, I won't get the certificate for probably another couple of weeks yet. It's got to be done by the end of the year. So hopefully they get that rolling. We can get that copied off and get it in and lock her in. Any questions on that?
All right, I don't see any, Josh, so on to the wrestling tournament in the Dells.
So the WIA they're allowing they're calling them non-WIA sanctioned tournaments for high school wrestlers. So what that means is you can, previous to this, like for example, a basketball team, you couldn't go play a tournament on a club team the same year, the same time the season's going on. Wrestling was the same thing during the season, but they're allowing teams to do that this year, but it has to be on your own. So for example, the wrestlers would like to go to a tournament in the Dells. So in order to do that, it has to be approved by our board and obviously our grants board, but it cannot be funded through any of our school funds. So for example, the tournament would have to be paid for on their own, transportation would be on their own. And the rules would not be affiliated with the WAA. So wearing masks, things like that. Right now, as far as I understand, coaches and stuff are still wearing masks. They may not have to wear masks when they wrestle. But it's one that they would like to do. There's a ton of schools that are going to be there. We're so limited in matches. It's one thing that they can get a lot of matches in that day. They asked us to come and get an approval for them to attend a non-WAA sanctioned tournament in the Dells.
What's Iowa Grant's position?
That hasn't gone to the board yet, but I think it goes to their next board meeting. So I have no idea what their board feels on that.
Do you have the dates, Josh?
I believe it's, if someone has a schedule, do you have a schedule, Barbie, in front of you for the rest? It's the same weekend as the Lancaster match. Is if they can't go to the Dells, they're gonna wrestle that. I want to say it's near the end of December here, Greg.
That'd be the 29th then.
You know, it's the same time that usually Bi-State is. And to me, if you're gonna let them do it, you know, this is a side note, I guess, but why won't the WA allow Bi-State to happen? If you're gonna allow a sanctioned tournament anyway, it's on the 29th. You know, if someone were to get after that, you still have that long break, you know, before, anyway, that's a whole nother story, but
I think I spoke wrong. Lynn said 12/19 instead of 12/29.
12/19?
Yeah, I guess.
So this tournament will potentially have no rules. Like there'll be any, you know, spectator, no.
well, it might have the exact same rules as WA, Andy. It's just that they determine them and it's not set up by the WA. So every wrestler may have to wear a mask. So they may not have any fans there. All coaches may have to wear masks. From my understanding, the last tournament there's there that I think a couple boys attended during football there was a tournament. Greg, you might know better than I though. The coaches had masks on, but I don't know that the wrestlers had to. I don't think they did. That was that. This was
All coaches, spectators. That one, they took everybody's temperature coming in and out. I was not there, but I know some people that were there. They've pretty, I don't know if that's Wisconsin Wrestling Federation is running those. If they are, they've got quite a number of tournaments out there, and they've got they're following all the state guidelines for, you know, they can only let, you know, certain capacity in, but the last one I knew, they took people's temperature going in, all spectators wear masks, all coaches, and I do not believe, and when the wrestlers were not wrestling, they had to wear a mask. Now that's what I knew of the last tournament.
So just thinking about the decision we just made regarding Shullsburg, you know, if we're not going to allow our basketball players to go to Shullsburg for that game because they're not following the rules that we're following for everything else, it seems like we should be similar for wrestling. And if they're doing what Greg's saying, then it sounds like they are following the same rules. But how do we get that information confirmed?
To somehow get the rules from whoever's putting on the tournament.
Well, I guess the question is if it's not a WIA sanctioned event, why are we being asked to attend it? Why are we as school board being asked? If the WIA allows this one clause this year for these kids to go and do what they want to do, why is the school board being asked?
It's no different than an AAU basketball tournament, is it?
as far as I know, it's not. I think that's one because it's during the season, I suppose. So the WA said in order to do this, you need approval from your board. Yeah.
So Lynn just put in the chat that she thinks we should request the procedure be shared ahead of time.
Procedure meaning the rules of the tournament? The procedures of the tournament?
Yes.
Well, I guess one of the things is just trying to figure out what we're comfortable with. I mean, we can put some sideboards on at least how our coaches and students behave at the tournament as far as, you know, not talking specifically about when they're wrestling, but when they're not wrestling, at least make sure that the coaches and students are wearing masks inside and, you know, doing the things they're supposed to anyway. I mean, I think if those things are followed, and we're smart about how the kids are attending there, it's a lot of kids and fans potentially in one place, but again, it depends on how things are set up as to whether it's safe or not. And this is something, Josh, that has to be school sanctioned if they're having to go there anyway and provide their own transportation and admission. It's still considered school sponsored.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's a funny thing, man, I can't believe this is something new again, you know, like, you know, as long as you get work proof, you can go. But it's not through the WA, so I don't know, I think the WA's kind of just kind of washing their hands of it or what, but
If they get as many matches as they can all season, probably that day.
yeah, they could.
There's only one of these they allow, or two?
Two.
Two. We could get another request for later in the year, possibly. If there's something was available.
What's that?
We could get another request later on for, if something was up in the end of January or mid-January.
Good, I don't, you know, Coach Allen never mentioned it, another one, but. And he did ask around to see if, you know, there was a lot of school, like the small schools, a lot of them were going to it, and, you know, he mentioned that Fenimore was looking at it, Winter Point was looking at it.
Well, all I can say is I'd really like to see it happen for the wrestlers. I don't want to get into some comparison of the different sports, but they only do have 7 matches in a season when they normally get 50. Compared to, I know you're trying to get basketball games in it, Josh. I heard you say you got some cancellations, but I know you got close to, I think, 19, 20 games. You're trying to pick up more for basketball. So I understand being safe and all that, but I agree if we can just make sure the procedures are what they are, I'd really like to see it happen. And I can speak to that because I have 2 boys that were involved and they put a lot of time in, so.
Well, and again, I think from a safety standpoint, part of it's gonna fall back on the wrestlers too. I mean, if something does happen where something comes, or somebody picks something up, it's gonna affect the whole team more than anybody else. So
And there's one too, you know, as Greg was talking about, the kids at time to put in, if a wrestler obviously didn't want not to go, it's not a, you know, like we're playing Hillsborough tomorrow night, a girl, I guess any girl can say I'm not going, but it would be no repercussions to a family that said, hey,
right.
I just don't feel comfortable sending Billy Bob, you know, so.
And you said that was on the 19th?
Yeah.
The 28th and 29th, Brad.
It's not the 19th,
No, 28th and 29th, Brad.
December.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was the end of December.
I'd like to leave it in the hands of the parents, kids, so I'll make a motion to approve it.
On a second, Greg.
We have a motion and a second to approve the wrestling tournament in Wisconsin Dells. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
1 second, for my votes.
Yep.
It is not the WA, it's the tournament directors that require the board to approve it. So that's where you're on, why is the WA? So the WA is approving that you can do it, but the tournament directors are telling me that, they have to have school approval for a team to attend. So I want to make sure everybody's clear with that before you vote, so.
People that are putting it on, the directors of the tournament,
Correct.
the adults.
And then I guess just one other question to the board members. I assume this is kind of contingent on Iowa Grant's approval as well, that we wouldn't just send half the IGH team to the meet?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, then we'll go on. All those in favor of the motion to approve the wrestling tournament in the Dells, please say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion passes. Then we're on to possible school schedule revisions.
We put together some things for you to look at. Josh and I talked at length with Sharon Frederick. She says, just right now, it's eerily quiet. She's not getting a lot of calls. You can see from the Iowa County summary that there are a few less positives. It went from 178 down to 158 per 10,000, but it's still at a very, very high level. It's possible that we'll get more, and the expectation is there'll get a few more cases after today, like the next couple of days, if it takes longer for some people to show symptoms. So the health department is keeping the recommendation of, being virtual in school, at least, middle school, high school virtual. But actually, according to the metric, they're recommending, if you follow their metric, both groups being virtual because of the high number, I believe. Then you have opposing recommendations. We have attached CDC recommendations. Are just comments that they're saying that the safest place for school-age kids is in school, that the experience has been that they're not spreading and not catching it. It's been a low amount of cases that have been traced back to school. I was in Josh's office today and a teacher came in a couple times, just worried about the kids that she can't reach and she can't get materials to. And, it's just a frustration that this virtual can work for certain kids and it can work for certain situations, but it's just so hard for some kids. Read some other documentation, whether they're tracking achievement, from last spring till the fall, just doing that amount, and they found that the kids who were the top kids, the kids who are already proficient grade level, they maintained proficiency. They didn't change much. But the people that are really getting affected and falling behind are the ones that are the lower achieving. The lower level kids are really, really struggling when they have to be virtual. So we would like, Josh and I, our administrative recommendation, I'll let Josh go through it, but basically we would like to be back in school through Christmas and come back in January on the scheduled Tuesday, with the Monday being a staff development day. And then Josh got staff support from some other wrinkles in here, and I'd like to have him kind of go through that because of the struggling students and the concern.
Ready for me?
Yep.
So obviously, there's no secret, there's people on every end of this, right? And, I just want to be as open as I can and then give you, as Mr. Bird said, our recommendation as administration. Right now, we have 8 students that had been tested positive for COVID. We had 2 elementary students, 3 middle school students, and 3 high school students. We've had 7 staff that have had COVID-19 positive cases. That includes all our staff, including coaching staff, professional staff, support staff, and then therapists that come into the building for any student that have IEP needs. I think that's really good considering, everything that's gone on so far during the pandemic. I think we're doing really well. So some reasons for us, I think, to return to in-person reading it or learning is just the emotional well-being of the students. It's no secret we talk about that. You know, I went home last night after basketball practice, and my middle daughter was just having a heck of a time because she's so, I mean, she's literally in tears because she's been home all this time, hasn't gone anywhere, she can't get out. It's like, it's just getting to her, you know? And obviously she's not the only one. So I'm worried about the emotional state of a lot of our kids, especially those kids that don't have a lot of direction in their homes. We can't get a hold of them, we can't track them. If you look out in the hallway here, you know, stuff that's supposed to get picked up. You know, we have stuff that when we first started 2 weeks ago in virtual learning hasn't even been picked up yet, you know? And, you know, where's that kid at? And we make calls that don't get answered and we don't get returned, and it's just really frustrating. I'm not saying those kids wouldn't struggle in here, but at least we know where they're at. At least we, you know, it's like we said before, those BC kids become DF kids, right? So in order for us to save, not save, but get these kids to an academic safe place, they gotta be in the building. Work completion, you know, students are logging on sometimes and then they just log off. For example, we've had students come in, find out there's a quiz that day, they just log off. You know, and they say, oh, I've got computer issues. Some of them might have it, a lot of times they don't. And they're using it as an excuse to not get anything done. So our AI list right now is the worst I've ever had in 11 years by far. We have more kids failing classes now than we've ever had. And, you know, this is tough on a lot of kids. It's just something that doesn't work for them. They need a routine, more of a routine, even though we try to make it as a routine as we can and we try to share as much as we can, but they're just not doing well with it. They're, you know, they're falling farther and farther behind, and it just doesn't seem to register the consequences of not getting stuff done, what's going on, you know? Some of them are rocking it. Some of them are just, I mean, they're absolute rock stars in this and just, they're kicking it right out of the ballpark, you know, but it's a certain student that's got motivation, that's got, you know, just the stick to it enough, you know, where they can hang right in there and get it, you know, but for a lot of our kids, it's just having that thing at home and having, you know, distractions, and it's just not a learning place for them, and they cannot get themselves in that mode enough to pass their classes. So, you know, like I said, our AI list is just not good. You know, leaving classes and then not checking back in, it's not good for too many of our kids right now. So we need those kids back. On the other side of that, reasons to stay virtually. Teaching virtually and then having kids learn in the building and out of the building is the hardest to do. It's the most stress on our teachers and probably the most stress on our kids because they're trying to teach the kids in person. We got the kids online trying to learn. You know, if there's something wrong here, something like, you know, if it's all virtual, it works a lot better. All right. If they're all here, it's great. But as you know, we're never going to get all the kids here. You know, parents have the right, you know, and we respect that. So that is one reason to stay virtual. You know, protocols that we have in place. I worry for our staff when, for example, we get a phone call that a parent's positive, right? So this parent is positive and they got tested 2 days previous to that, but their kids have been in school the whole time, right? That's not good. So now we just exposed all these kids are in school, the teacher gets exposed, and, you know, not following protocols and having those situations really makes it unsafe for kids to be here sometimes. So that's something that we need to do a better job of cleaning that stuff up. Staff, just overall, some staff, not all staff by any means, but some staff that just don't feel, you know, when we are here and it's a pandemic, they just don't feel safe as they would like to. So they're still doing it. They're still hanging right in there with me. But, you know, as anyone, the higher your stress level is, the harder it is to do anything, right? And they just feel like that. They don't feel like they're being a good teacher. You know, we have teachers that are very tech savvy and they can do a great job virtually. So they, you know, think we should stay that way. saying these things, I want to make sure I'm open to you on both sides of it. I'd like to give a recommendation, Mike, if that's all right, or what we feel. I feel saying that though, I still feel the best place for our kids to be is in the building. For those that choose, their families that choose, they want their kids here. I want to continue with the extracurricular activities as we have planned. I would like to be able to open the gym up for our Highland kids, only our Highland kids, and approved coaches or approved supervisors. For example, we have youth wrestling that may want to start practicing. We have youth basketball that we'd like to start practicing. I know Mr. Campbell, for example, the baseball and the softball teams, because of everything that happened last spring, they get 15 contact days before the season starts. So there's only one way they can do that. I mean, they can do it outside the building if we want, but is that safe? So if we can let them in to get those things done. Obviously, anyone that comes in building has to follow the same protocols we have. They have to have the masks on. We have to limit the spacing to make sure it's safe for everyone. So all those things we in place, and if they don't follow it, they can't come in. So I would like to start that. As far as the grades and how my idea, our idea to correct and hopefully help some of these kids get off of an F. Take out finals. I'd like to take those out. They're the last 2 days before break. I'd like to have regular school days those days. So when we come back from break the first week in January, that first Monday is a work day. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is technically our first week back. It is not what the Iowa County, they haven't come out with what they strongly feel is what they want to do with that week as far as having no one in the building. It's probably going to be a strong recommendation though, just so I'm upfront with you that they're going to want to stay out that week. That would be our last week of the semester. So saying that, I would like the elementary obviously to come back, be in person, but the middle and high school, give an award for those kids that are knocking out of the park. So any student that's got an A, B, or a C has those 4 days as a reward where they don't have to be at school. Anyone that has a D or an F, you have those 4 days to get your grade up to as high as you can get it. All right. So for example, if I was a student and I was failing English and whatever, science, for example, all right, those 4 days, I would spend half my day each day in the English room and half my day each day in the science room, redoing quizzes, redoing work that I missed, all those things, and hopefully get my grade at least to passing in that week. If those students after that week are still not there, now we have to look at some kind of remedial work or summer school. So I want to make that up front with students. But to be honest, if we continue on the rate that we're on right now, we are going to have way too many students that have to either retake classes or come to summer school or both. And if we have to schedule this next semester even, or even next year, when we have all these kids at different levels that have to retake a class, our schedule is so hard to do now, it's going to be a nightmare. So that's my recommendation. And hopefully we think that's a solid plan. But it is not, I'll be straight up, it's not without, some concerns from staff and obviously some parents.
Based on the last 2.5 weeks, Josh, what is the staff percentage that says, okay, this isn't working, let's get back in the building?
We had a meeting, I had a meeting, while we were in it for a while, and then we went virtual after that. And, I think it's gotten better as far as, even though the grades are where they're at, they're getting more comfortable because we've done it enough now. But we're just finding out, if I had to say majority want kids back in the building. I mean, every staff member would love to have kids in front of them. They all know, they can all agree. I don't think anyone would disagree that I can teach better with my kids. I can see them, they're sitting here. All right, it's just the fact that we have them, it's not a big, the majority do want them back, but it's not, would you agree, Bryce? It's not that big a majority, I would,
So would you say it's 70-30, 60-40?
I'd probably closer 60-40, 65-35. If I were to guess.
Well, I'm gonna go off based on my experience when I'm home for lunch. And I'm listening to my middle child's class during that time. I would say if I was that teacher, and I can't speak for that person, but I think it would be a heck of a lot easier to have kids in building versus all the crap that they have to deal with virtually online. It would drive me absolutely nuts.
I said the staff have a ton more patience than I do.
And I mean, I've listened to this teacher rip into some of these kids online. And rightfully so. They deserve it. But I would think based on some of the excuses I've heard on just listening when I'm home for lunch, they're far better off being in school. Because some of the excuses these kids use.
Well, and I think we've talked about that before. As far as the kids go, there's just no doubt that they're better off being in school here. And I think if you have the parents and the kids, you know, they're all gonna wanna be back in school, and they have that option, right? So the ones who don't want their kids here aren't gonna send them here anyway. So again, it's not necessarily a parent or a student thing. Obviously, the best thing for them is to be here. So then it's just making sure that it's a safe enough place and that we have adequate staff to keep the school going, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I was, you know, the kids want to be here, parents want the kids here for the most part, and they have the option not to. It's the staff that doesn't have the option, really. You know what I mean? We'll make it an option as much as we can, but, you know, the staff is the one that, you know, it's no secret. I mean, obviously our numbers are about the same. We've had, you know, 7 staff and 8 students, right? Well, we have 300 students and we have 50 staff. So that tells you the chances of a staff member getting COVID are a lot higher than, you know, a kid. So.
Do you have any sense out of those 7 or 8 students or teachers, what may have picked it up at school or community spread? Or, because I mean, that's
great question.
That's the concern, is whether it's being spread in school.
Right.
You know,
and from what we can tell, you know, we had 1 high school student that we think, you know, we can't prove any of it, right? But there's 1 case where a teacher might have got it from a student. Other than that, you know, it was all outside of school. It's usually, you know, a parent has them get in their kid. It's been the majority by far. The staff that got it by far, you know, it's been pretty obvious. You know, like I said, we can't prove anything that it was outside the school, other than 1 case where we had 1 high school student that got it, and then we found out a couple staff members got it later. But, you know, with all the, you know, asymptomatic things, they might know the exact opposite of that. But if we were to guess, we would say that probably. I think I'm, you know, pretty close to accurate on that.
Well, I guess I'll just say that I support your recommendations of getting kids back in school next week if we can, and, you know, kind of the way you have things set up over break here. I've got a few questions we can talk about later, but I mean, in general, I am supportive of this, and I guess the way we've been doing this is we've been leaving it up to your recommendations, but I do want the board's input here, because that's kind of how we've been doing this, is review the plans and have some discussion on it and make sure everybody's voices are heard and come to some kind of consensus.
You know, when we talked with Sharon Frederick, we said, of course, you know, if something changes, you know, a week into school and there's, you know, an outbreak or there's too much, we always have to close that. I mean, that's always there. But if there isn't, if you can get, 2.5 weeks in before Christmas break, it'd be nice to get that face to face.
Like the last time we talked about this on a Wednesday night and kind of had a plan going forward, and a day later it changed.
Yeah. Well, I don't have staff here. Well, that kind of answers that question real quick. So we did all that work and it changed anyway, right?
Yeah.
I guess for me, Josh, I'm supportive of wanting to get the kids back into school and getting them face to face, because obviously the majority of them need to be here or want to be here because they want to have the interaction. And obviously, you know, the parents that choose to stay virtual, they have that option. So I'm in favor of reopening if that's what you chose to do.
All right, I'll just jump in. I don't have any problems either. Mike kind of was saying what I was thinking, you know. I think I said the last time this thing's living day to day, hour by hour, because we spent a lot of time last meeting and we had good discussion. And by the next day, it was, you know, something obviously had changed. And so, and I think that's how you have to keep approaching it. So, and I do think, I can speak. I've watched how the virtual for some of my kids, out of my 4 kids. I mean, I got some of them that, you know, they really excel at it. I mean, because they just, I mean, I got one that's up at 5:30 every morning studying and really takes it serious. And so I think, you know, Josh, what you say is you're right. There are for some, and you know who they are. But at the end of the day, I've listened to some of those conversations that Kenny was talking about too. And God bless, God bless a lot of the teachers for all that, because the patience that they have with some of that. And so, but there are still kids too that really, on the other spectrum, I have all my kids, I feel they work hard, but some of them, they really struggle with the virtual. They really do. And they really need that to be in the classroom. So I'm all for it. If we can get everybody back in, like Bryce just said, 2.5 weeks, Bryce, you know, and keep it in mind. Obviously, I think people have to understand, families have to understand that this could change at any time, but I say we move forward.
So, is there any more comments though? I just want to make sure everyone understands that week, you know, as I mentioned before, when we come back in January, that is a week that the Iowa County is really going to stress probably wanting to go virtual that first week. That's the one I was talking about, just bringing the kids back in the middle and high school that are at our D or an F, and then the elementary would be back. So I just want to make sure you're comfortable with that, and I'm open about that. So if you feel differently, feel free to, you know, if you want me to look at some different options, I can definitely try to put something together.
But you're hoping that would at least be half of the high school could stay home, or half of the middle school, you could distance those kids a little bit more?
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
And again, that's another 3-4 weeks from now, Josh, too.
Yeah, maybe things could
You
change.
know, it's a good,
Yeah, we might not even have the option. They might say we can't go, or we might be sitting pretty dang good. Hopefully the latter, right? So.
Todd, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna give you my 2 cents. I mean, I obviously the last meeting, I was probably one of the ones pushing more for the closing. And I mean, but I have also been home, like Greg said. I have, out of 3 kids, 2 of them are definitely struggling with being at home, not doing well. The one that's probably doing well is probably the one that needs to be around people more. She's the one missing, like Josh's middle child, that she's more missing the people that she's not seeing. But she's doing fine, I think, with her grades. I do like what Josh has in there for that first week back in January. I mean, maybe it'll give some incentive to some of these kids to get those grades up before then, to get that extra time off. And even if it's not as an incentive, I mean, it'll be good to get them those extra 3 or 4 days to get those grades up. I mean, so they can have almost one-on-one time with those teachers and work directly with those grades that they didn't get up. So I like that part. And like Bryce said, hopefully we only have a few. Hopefully the number is not huge and we don't have half the high school there just because their grades are that bad. I am actually in favor of, I guess I do have one question. I know, like you said, our last meeting, we sort of left it at, you're gonna stay in school for a week. I guess my only concern would be is if the reason that we decided the next day to close was it due to teacher kickback, or was it due to a few extra, was it like 2 or 3 more cases that we didn't have before that made us switch to virtual the next day?
Yeah, it was, Todd, your ladder was, just getting everything covered, and then we had, that's when we had that flux of staff who wouldn't be able to cover stuff, and then we had some more kids that we didn't know, and it was adding up pretty good. Now, some of them came back, they were fine, but we didn't know at the time, and it was just, I think I was working with Sharon, and she was at our grant at the time, and she had to send, I think, how many, just in a different district. So it just got to be an influx in that, so I just moved it up, it ended up being a day earlier than we had planned, if you remember right. So I just took the safe route on that and didn't have to worry about then as far as getting stuff covered, because that's if I were to talk to Barb and Kimber, when we're in person, it is a lot of extra work for Kim and Barb to get stuff, because every day it's a new puzzle, I guess I'll say, that we got to piece together, because you just don't know from day to day. But, we did the best we can, and we do the best we can, and we, luckily so far, we've been able to get her done. But to the other point that you said, Todd, and I want to thank you for bringing that up, the point where hopefully the incentive to get kids off of it. As you know, we have virtual Fridays. Like this Friday again is a virtual Friday that we had scheduled from day one. So it's a half a day, and those kids that failing I had come in. I tell you, that was a huge motivator for a lot of kids, because they did not want to be here. So it worked really well for a lot of those kids that were floating there. They got their stuff in, got it done, got it in, because they're, hey, Michelle, do I have to be here? Michelle, do I have to be here? I was getting out, I was like, hey, this thing is working. So I'm hoping that this will do the same thing. If this is approved tonight, that I can send this out and they can share it with their kids. And obviously I'll share it, with as many kids as I can talk to and have teachers share it, that, hey, if I can get 4 extra days of Christmas break off, I'm going to get my butt rolling here. So we're hoping that's, that's another incentive to do this, but.
Right. Plus that extra week. I mean, it definitely will be good coming out of holidays. I mean, people are still going to get together, and I think we all saw it at Thanksgiving. So families are going to get together around Christmas. If we can keep a lot of those kids out of school 1 extra week, that's a good thing.
So, but I mean, we still have to open that up. So for example, if a kid has a B or a C in a class and they want to come in, we're not going to deny any kids to come in. So if a kid wants to come in and go to the classes, they can still do so. I don't want to, these kids that want to be here, that's not something, no, you can't come in those days. They'll still have the right to. I want to make sure we're open about that. So as far as the COVID thing, not letting those kids in will not be an option that legally we can do.
That was one question I did have, Josh. Without having finals, if kids are B or C kids and they want to be A or B kids, what opportunities do they have to increase their grades toward the end, just to make sure that there's opportunity for them, maybe not coming in those days, but just that there's enough grading at the end of the semester to help them out.
Yeah, great question. That was one that we discussed at the staff meeting too. So, well, what about a B kid that wants to get some extra and get an A? Should we not let them? And, I brought up the staff, and it was basically, well, why not? I don't think we'll get, maybe we will, I don't know, but if that kid wants to come in and, you know, they're not the kids that are, you know, if they got an A or B or even a C, they probably don't have a lot of missing work. You know, and I don't know if it'd be enough to get them up to a higher grade, but if they want to come in and give it a shot, by all means.
Brent or Andy, do you guys have anything for us?
I agree with what everybody else is talking about. If they can staff it and be there, then let's get them back.
I agree with all the recommendations. I'm just kind of drifting back about 30 years and thinking of the group I'd be with, trying to get together at nights to figure out how to get that extra 4 days off.
Good idea. The group that would help with your homework, they get
A little more than 30 there, Brent, a little more than 30, but
Well,
old, you're old. Also, I think what was I gonna say there? Shoot, it'll come to me, go ahead.
No, I think, you know, as we haven't been voting on this the whole time, Josh, I think you kind of have consensus from the board to move ahead with your plan. I think it's good, and it may change tomorrow again. So that's the flexibility that you guys have. And just in your correspondence with the families, and students and staff, is just keep reminding them, wearing masks, doing everything and trying to do everything right. I mean, we've been kind of preaching that, and maybe we have had some buy-in from the community to help keep these kids in school based on the numbers that have been kept fairly low, knock on wood. And, you know, so I think if we don't reward that by allowing some of the kids to come back in, you know, if there are families that are doing that to keep kids in school, that's, you know, stuff that we should reward as well. All right, enough? Or did you come up with it, Josh?
No, it wasn't anything that I don't think pertained to anything that was immediate.
All right, if nothing else on that, we don't have any personnel items, so then we would be adjourning the closed session for purpose of administrator performance review, and the safety plan details would be reviewed then too as well, Josh, or?
No, I think we can, I covered everything. The only time we had to do a closed session if we changed the plan.
And review the plan itself, right? What was in the plan, specifics. All right.
I make a motion to approve to go to adjourn to closed session.
A motion and a second a motion by Esther and a second by Drury to adjourn to closed session. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Andy, can you do a roll call vote for that?
Yeah, Benish, yes. Biba,
Yes.
Dreschmeyer,
Yes.
Drury,
yes.
Esser,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Schimick.
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned to closed session, which means we gotta figure out how to stop the recording somehow.
I don't know how to stop it. They've got a C, so I don't think,
You have to boot everybody else out of the meeting, I think, Josh.
yeah. You want me to leave and come back? Want to discuss stuff, then how do you
I
usually do that?
think, why don't you stay here to start with, and then if we need you to leave the room, we'll have you leave the room.
You mean leave, right?
I don't know that we need you to leave right away either, Josh. Barb, you should probably head out.
Let me see if I can hold up Bradley and see how I can stop the recording. Nobody swear, we're still being recorded here.
Yeah.
Bradley, hey, we're going to closed session, so I gotta stop recording. Okay, where it says recording. see where it says recording. Oh, you have to, huh? Are you? All right. If I can't do it from this one, he's gotta do it from his computer, so he is going to stop it when he's ready.
And just remind that he needs to kick everybody else out of closed session, or out of the Zoom, except the board member.